Look at those delicious caffeinated bubbles. Isn't it beautiful? Hey guys, Ralph coming at you from the kitchen. And today, I'm going to show you how to make a good cup of coffee. A few people have mentioned our routine of making coffee in the mornings when we vlog. I know Vivi asked if we could demonstrate how we make a cup of coffee, and I know Max was curious about some of the weird things that we do when we're making coffee. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, Lou and I are a little bit psycho when it comes to coffee. I'm very particular. I would rather have 1 cup of delicious, perfectly brewed coffee in the morning than drink a large cup of garbage, quite frankly. And a good cup of coffee takes time, it takes care, and it takes love. And I'm gonna show you how to do that today. Okay, so here's what you're gonna need. First of all, I recommend a manual brewing method, like a pour over. So we have our little Bodum 4-cup pour over. It's got a separate basket filter. You can also use a French press. This is my preferred brewing method because you have control. You have control over the love that goes into it. You have control over the pour. And I like control, and I like the feel of this glass Bodum in my hand. Chemex is also wonderful. Okay, what else are you gonna need? Well, you're gonna need water. Get yourself a kettle. In a perfect world, this kettle would have a temperature setting where you can see the exact temperature the water is at. This particular one does not have that function, but we're gonna use what we've got here. I'm gonna turn it on there, let it boil. And I'm gonna let that boil. Put it to the side while we're chatting. And obviously we need coffee beans. Whole bean, freshly roasted, stored in an airtight container. Ideally, you want to grind immediately before making your pour over. So I'll do that in a second and talk about how much we use. You're gonna need a filter. Yes, there's a basket filter here. I still like to use a paper filter just because it's easier. You don't have to clean all the crap out of the wires in this basket filter. Shove that down in the basket. Do not put your beans in the dry filter. I don't know why, but I like to soak it. Apparently, it makes for a better cup of coffee. And I don't need that much convincing, so just do it. Secondly, next, you need a grinder. Again, in a utopian universe where coffee is lord of all, I would use a burr grinder because these hand grinders are not consistent and they're just not as good as a burr grinder. So if you can get your hands on a burr grinder, do it. But in our case, we don't have that luxury. So what we do is we take this hand grinder, whole beans, put a bunch in. I've made a lot of coffee, so I know roughly how much I need. So I normally fill it up to about the top of the steel line. I don't just throw it in directly from here, I measure it out. And depending on the brew, depending on the how strong you want your coffee, I normally use 2 tablespoons of fine ground coffee in a basket filter that's been soaked per cup. For our purposes, I'm gonna make 2 cups, so that's gonna require 4 leveled tablespoons of fine ground coffee. As a side note, today I'm grinding these East African beans, medium roast, from a local place. It's actually a chain called Ashanti, and I think most of their beans are sourced from Africa. Focus! Focus, damn it! So depending on the region the beans are from, it really changes the flavor. And if you want some more information on that sort of stuff, check out the My Parents' Basement podcast, episode 2, where I talked to Kyle from Anchor Coffee House, and we talk a little bit about flavor profiles and regions and that sort of thing. There it is, fine grind. Again, it would be more consistent with a burr grinder, but this is what we got. Set the grounds aside for now. If you want a consistent cup of coffee, I suggest either using a scale or a measuring cup, and get really nitty-gritty with the measurements. So first of all, water's come to a boil. Let's start by soaking this basket. So just let that run through. I kind of swish that around to get the extra gunkies out of there from the last time. And of course you're going to need a cup. And I have my trusty coffee first always cup here. I always fill that with boiling water too, because one, it heats the mug up, and two, it rinses it out. Set that aside and let it heat up. Get rid of that water from the bottom. Now that our basket is rinsed and soaked, we can put in the beans. Like I said, I'm making 2 cups, so I'm gonna have 2 rounded tablespoons per cup, so 4 total. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The leftovers aside. Make sure you use these within the same day because day-old grounds are no good grounds. All right, we got our coffee in the basket there. I like to give it a little shake to even things out. And then we're gonna start with our first pour. First pour is to soak the beans. So we're not doing a full pour here, we're just soaking those grounds and letting the flavors extract. Let the oils emulsify and let the magic begin. So the reason you don't want to have boiling water pouring on your coffee grounds is because it over extracts the flavor and gives a bitter taste. If you put cold water on it, it's going to give you less extraction and therefore less flavor. So both options are not ideal. You want, just off the boil a couple minutes. Unless of course you're doing a cold brew, which is a whole other monster and I don't even know how to do that, so forget it. So our water is just off the boil and I'm filling it up to 2 cups here. And I like to do my pours not in one pour, but in multiple pours. So we've already soaked the beans here, as you can see. And then I like to do a first pour where you kind of swirl that hot water in with the beans, then let it drip for a minute. Once it's gone down a little bit, I like to do a second pour with the rest of the hot water, getting the grounds off the side and continuing that swirling motion. I don't know if it has any effect on the flavor, but it makes me feel good. And now we wait while it drips away. We're almost done with the drip here. Usually takes 5 to 8 minutes, depending on how much you're brewing. Don't forget that you've got your mug sitting with hot water in here. You want to get this in the sink because if you pour a delicious cup of coffee into a boiling hot cup of water, it's going to ruin your day. Once it's empty and the brew's done dripping, get rid of that basket. Give your Bodum or Chemex or a pour over a swirl so that all the flavors smooth throughout. You can massage it too if you want. Then, the fun part. Look at those delicious caffeinated bubbles. Isn't it beautiful? Well guys, that is how... Whoa, you can tell I haven't had coffee yet. Look at this mess. Now the fun part. Enjoy your delicious cup of coffee. It is beautiful, consistent. Perfect your cup of coffee and enjoy it with a friend. Start your day right. No, but seriously, this is my favorite way to make coffee in the morning. Hope you guys found it useful. Let me know if you have any other suggestions to make an even better cup of coffee because we're always looking to improve on the sexy brew, even though it's pretty hard to improve on an already beautiful thing. Go drink coffee, love life, love you, bye.
Hey Chico, we just be chillin'.